let's just get going. Because we got Bruno here and he's invaluable. How are you, Bruno?
I'm all right, Stefan. How are you today?
A bit
Well, you know,
but
Stefan, let's start with a positive note. I would have to say happy birthday, Stefan.
Hey,
happy
thank
birthday.
you very much.
Yeah, happy birthday live.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
All right.
Birthday.
So
let's
need
be
to say it
positive.
in Finnish?
say again?
How do you say happy birthday in Finnish?
No, I'm not Finnish. I'm Dutch speaking.
Oh, Dutch. Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah, and from
Dutch.
Belgium. Gelukkige verjaardag.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's plenty complex. Now you know why I clean it up a lot of time. So anyway, Bruno, it's great to have you back. I wanted to, one of the things that we really didn't get around to last time is asking some questions from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
I was wondering whether somebody wanted to kick off and ask Bruno a question that they've been thinking about for a couple of weeks. Otherwise, I will delve into something else, but go ahead if you have one. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
All right, think about it for
I have
minutes. Go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. If nobody wants to chime in, yeah, I have a question regarding the case that Bruno talked about last time about linguists and data scientists. I'm very curious about what the linguists had, what advantages linguists had, like specific to that experiment.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a very interesting topic to make AI more inclusive and not just a matter for technologist people. The reason why I think that linguists have definitely a competitive advantage, if I can use that term, with data scientists is that linguists, they have this feeling and this knowledge, this expertise of all facets of language. So the words, which is the linguistic effectiveness, but also the cultural sensitivity. And they are used, I mean, they work 8 hours a day or more than 8 hours a day. They work with this sort of challenge to make language really relevant and appealing to the audience, which data scientists don't do. They are so focused on data management, which is a very different type of business, very type of role. And to be honest, I tested that myself when I was at Nielsen back between, let's say, 2011 and 2018, because my team was responsible for digital globalization. And my team was also responsible for working with data scientists to manage language data for BI applications. So I'm not sure if there are people from Oracle or Salesforce on the call, but the BI industry has been using language data for at least 2 decades. So if you talk to somebody from the BI industry, the business intelligence industry, about language data, it won't be a new thing. And what I had to do to make the to deliver the right content was really to work closely with data scientists. And of course, I realized very quickly that they were great people, but of course they were involved in statistics, in metrics, in data management, everything that makes data management efficient. But linguists on my team were able really to calibrate the language that was used. And again, it was focused on the linguistic effectiveness, so the right words, the right term, the right style, and also all the cultural nuances, all the cultural dependencies that the language is conveying. So that's why, data scientists and linguists, in my experience, can definitely work together well. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, probably. And one more further question regarding that. What you said, like there was an experiment where you basically linguists and data scientists, they did the data extraction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was specifically what linguists had Like what things they did better than data science? Is it regarding like language specifically, like all the things that you mentioned?
Yeah. So linguists were they were focusing, as I said, on language management. So finding and making sure that the data that was extracted was linguistically effective. And when I say that, I mean that it was that this data was curated to make the data in English, French, Spanish, etc., not just correct, of course, linguistically correct, but also relevant for the audience that was going to be used, that was going to be using this data later on. And this is an experience and expertise that, of course, linguists have because they work with that sort of goal every hour. Well, even if they are post-editing, they are still, focused on improving the content and making the content truly effective. So that's why this focused on the various facets of language is really something where linguists or translators can stand out versus, as I said, data scientists, even multilingual data scientists, do not have this experience simply because it's not their business. I remember when I was talking to data scientists, they were really happy to be working with linguists because they said themselves that they wouldn't be able, of course, they could maybe make some corrections. They wouldn't be able to really curate the data to the level that was expected.
Bruno, we've been talking a lot about translators and linguists, but there's a good segment of us that manage the projects as well, both on the client side and the vendor side. And I was wondering whether you see opportunities for us that are in project management to advance with the use of new technologies.
Definitely. I see, first of all, a challenge because the industry, specifically the localization industry, but I would say even the content industry as a whole, has been working with processes and workflows that were file-based. Essentially, for the past decades, when you were a project manager, or when you are even a project manager today, you were responsible, of course, for assigning resources, but also for transactioning the files, receiving files, sending files, receiving files, delivering files. So it was based on file transaction. Today, with AI, you cannot do the same thing. You cannot train AI with files. You need data. So there is a whole section of the supply chain that's changing because of this need for language data, so that a number of organizations have content assets like videos, audio files, text files, of course. And of course, the challenge is to extract from these content assets, is to extract data, language data that are going to be used for training and feeding AI later on. So project managers, they have to manage now new roles and new responsibilities that, the activities and the tasks that we mentioned last time, which are related to, the actual creation and the actual availability of language data, which is annotation, curation, structure, knowledge management. And this is something new that has to be, of course, enabled by the workflow. So project managers have a challenge there, but they have also an opportunity to do something more than transactioning files and assigning resources. Because of this changing supply chain, they will be more involved in managing activities and tasks for the whole part of the supply chain that is dedicated to the language data before language data is available to start feeding and training AI engines. So that is where the challenge is, not for the project managers only themselves, but also for the organizations to make sure that the workflows can be adapted to be able to handle to handle language data, which I work with a company now that is in the process of changing their workflows to be able to handle more language data It's not, of course, impossible, but it takes time and it's a challenge. And that's where project managers can also sort of share some experience about what is needed to do a good job.
Cool. Erica, if you can keep an eye on the chat for me, like you did last time, that would be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
If people have questions, or if you have a question, feel free to.
I actually have a question. If
Oh,
you
yeah,
don't
go
mind.
ahead, but
Yeah,
chime in.
when we're talking about the future project managers in this new paradigm, is there a place for standard translation tools like TMS systems or anything like that? If we are talking about data extraction, or is it like the whole new set of tools that project managers, localization project managers, will have to learn to use?
This is a great question, and there are really, I see two trends for solving this problem. The first trend is indeed to, in some cases, to upgrade, I would say, or to adapt the TMS to manage language data, which, in my opinion, is not going to be probably the most cost-effective way of doing things, because, of course, and I know some TMSs today are already considering that very seriously, and I'm not going to make any promotion for the TMS, but I can just speak about, for instance, XTM or MemoQ that are really working on this very seriously, because they know that the language data is going to be really a critical part of translation, localization, supply chains in the future. Well, the future already now, but even more in the future. So that is one option that is possible. But I don't, as I said, I don't think it's really the most effective, cost and time effective one. I think the way that some companies are doing it now, that I see, implementing a real ecosystem with some new tools. So you keep your TMS to manage the traditional workflows. You keep your CAP tool to post edit. You keep your terminology management tool. It's possible, but then you have a layer above all these tools, and then you can plug more tools that are specific for indeed data extraction, data transcription, content transcription, data annotation, and then for project managers, they will have other tools at their available, I would say, to manage the new task and the new activities. But for that, of course, you have this concept of ecosystem or marketplace. If you look at the NIMSI landscape, as I call it, or the NIMSI map, you will see that there is a section called marketplace. I don't think that all products mentioned by NIMSI are true marketplaces there, but anyway, it is now a clear section of the language technology industry that are, and these marketplaces are enabling project managers, but also other people in the supply chain to have access to the tools that they need and to make it as seamless as possible. So that is definitely a trend that I see more cost effective, at least for large organizations. Maybe for medium-sized or small organizations, probably it's debatable, but for big organizations, large organizations, I had a chance to talk about that at the XTM and XTRF forums this year, and the concept of having a marketplace or an ecosystem, I prefer the word ecosystem, is definitely in the mind of some people already. So these are the two options: upgrade or implement an ecosystem that's going to where you can plug the tools that you need.
You think it's too early in the process to kind of finger a front runner in this new technological race of updated tools, or are there tools that you think are really promising? Marina, you probably are interested in this type of discussion as well, because you provide training for the localization community, and I'm sure if there's tools that are up and coming, that's going to be of interest to your students as well. So maybe Bruno, do you have anything, or is it too early?
No, I think there are a few tools, but let's first, I see Marina has activated her webcam, so I don't want
activated.
I don't want to. No, please, Marina, go ahead, and I will follow.
I was just going to say, I don't want to advocate one over another, but I have been dabbling and, working side by side to understand some of the tools. And I would like to say with the Localization Advocate Academy, thank you so much, Stefan. I don't like to sell things, but I try to have this as community oriented and as cost effective. And the thing is, when I see students, and by students, a broad term, anybody who is newer to localization, who has an interest in it, even, there's lots of folks who work in localization that don't have the training. So this stuff is for everybody. And when we get into the new stuff like AI, come on, guys, why are you using ChatGPT right in its window? It's like, walking across a highway and expecting not to get hit. Use a protected environment. Use a tool that has the wrapped in an API and has the somewhat security of Azure or whatever. So in my humble opinion, seek out a tool that has, offered in an API, so it's not, you don't get all the badness with just in the wild ChatGPT kind of thing. And also what I'd like to say is developing a course that's going to be generative AI kind of in general for localization tools, and then kind of a chance for the students to have a low cost version of learning these things. And, having that in addition to the old standards, Trados. I've got one of the best Trados trainers, I think, in the world. And those classes are extremely high value. So you can go old school, you can go brand new. And then in my view, if you have an idea of how a tool works, you get, a reach in. And one thing else I'm going to say, I think it's very important to allow translators and project managers to sit together with each other. And that's going to set you apart, especially in the workplace, because if you're I'm translator only and I'm just going to do those things, what happens when you got to work with a project manager and they don't know how to package something or deliver something, and vice versa? You're sitting with your PM and you have no idea how this stuff works. So I really enjoy cross-pollinating, functional learning, and at the best community-oriented. Let's, try to understand these things together. That's my, thank you for allowing that. That's what I want to say.
No problem. I want to circle back to Bruno because I think he had some input as to what the front runners were in his head. So I'd love to pick his brain about that.
Actually, well, first of all, I agree with you, Marina. So I think that it has to be, also a joint effort between PMs and linguists. But to sort of address your question, Stefan, I think that today, what I see in some very advanced organizations is that you have an ecosystem that is allowing language data management, but actually it's not one solution. It's a set of multiple, at least several, not multiple. Multiple is probably too aggressive, but several tools that are dedicated to some task, like transcription, where you have Reeve.ai, for instance, that I worked with recently, as an example. You have plenty of AI tools. So usually those products are called something.ai, obviously. And actually, you have then a tool for the major tasks, which are extraction, annotation, curation. And this is the other reason why I mentioned that, in my opinion, the most cost-effective way forward would be to implement gradually, not a big bang, but gradually to implement an ecosystem, a marketplace, where you can plug these tools that will enable the actual language data management the various steps, at least the major steps that you have to consider anyway. And then of course in the workflow you will have the sort of the as I said, the communication between the different tools. So for instance, you have a tool to extract the content and then another tool to transcribe the content. But then of course, as soon as those tools are delivering their output, generating their output, they go to the annotation interface. There is a tool for that as well. There is a curation interface. So unfortunately, I wish I could tell you, yes, there is one solution that can do it all. It's not the case for the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if a solution like that, fully unified, would come due to the importance of language data, as days go by. So, but for the moment, my projects in this field are really about making various tools communicate, and covering, of course, the whole part of the supply chain that is dedicated to language data. And then of course that language data, when it's fully relevant and clean, it start training and feeding systematically the AI engine. So that is what I see for the moment, and what I hear from people who are moving ahead with language data.
All right, Michael, jump on in, man. You're very, very polite raising your hand. I'm gonna reiterate what I usually say when we do this. I'm horrible at keeping track of who raises hands and who posts things in the chat. So please, let's do it European style. When you hear Bruno slow down with an answer, you can go ahead and barge in and ask your question, and I won't be mad that you're breaking protocol. So Michael, go ahead.
I don't hear anything. Is it me or?
We might have lost him.
We might have lost it. You might.
Where'd he go?
Michael Coates brought up an interesting thing, which I think we've kind of answered, and I think we've also maybe even answered an earlier question about where to get training, because I think that's that Raffaella brought up. I think we need to follow Marina on LinkedIn and just see, and track to see how technology is going, but more like what Michael was saying, asking for a very, I think we want, he's saying, what type of AI learning will be best for training the LLMs. Judging by Bruno, what you're saying, it sounds like we're waiting and seeing,
So actually, Angelo is in the group here too, and maybe he can chime in, because I know that he's setting Gabby T up to be used specifically for translation uses, and maybe he has some input on what the best setup is and the things that he's doing.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late to the meeting. I
Don't
was
be sorry.
struggling. I was late for another meeting, and then the link I don't know, the link wasn't
Yeah,
working.
the link was a mess. That's my fault. We figured it out eventually, so I apologize for that. But
I mean, from what I've caught on to, I think the one thing I can contribute for now is that so for example, ChatGPT now has a fine-tuning capability, so you can fine-tune ChatGPT. That means moving forward, every translator can have their own personalized version of ChatGPT trained on their own translation memory. That increases productivity 400 or 500%, because you can now sell pre-translation. And of course, you can sell that in parallel. So you no longer have to be awake and available to translate. Your clients can go to your website or wherever, upload a file, have it pre-translated using your personal translation memory. It'll sound in your voice. It'll use all your vocabulary. You could even attach a terminology base or whatever you want. And it's a pre-translation. It's important that it's sold as a pre-translation and not a machine translation, because you need to. I think one of the big things that machine translation is an extremely old term. It's machine and not computer, right? And I think people need to be reminded that, like, at the end of the day, someone needs to be held accountable and actually read it and say whether or not it's meaningful. Of course, there are use cases where, you know, the human level quality is not necessary, and that's fine. Being told that it's a pre-translation tells you basically it's a draft, and that person will decide for themselves whether or not it's okay. And then they can just click a button and say, hey, thanks for the pre-translation, but, you know, uh, how much to have you review this and put your stamp of approval on this? So all of a sudden, a translator only has to spend the time editing or post-editing or prompt engineering or whatever tool they decide to use to review their work, and it's going to take a fraction of the time because the pre-translation is already going to be nuanced to take care of those fuzzy types of errors that machine translation historically makes, those preferential issues that translators in the past would make edits on, which were arguably very subjective. Those are exactly the things that will go away with LLMs, because that's what it specializes in.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. I would just add to
And
this.
that's what we're coming. That's what we're building.
I would just add to this picture that right now, for instance, I'm working with some large organizations that are not going to rely on LLMs. They are going to build, and they are actually building. They are creating their own custom language models because they are in regulated industries, and in regulated industries, just forget ChatGPT. It's not going to work. And so those organizations, they have to implement in their supply chain. They have to implement this sort of section, I call it section, dedicated to language data creation, management, and delivery, so that, you know, this very custom language data can start feeding, obviously, the custom language models. Specifically in life science and finance industries, it's really hot for the moment. And so depends on where, I mean, depends on the industry, of course, but it depends on what people expect from language models. If it's large language models, indeed, ChatGPT does a great job, and of course, we'll keep doing a better job as days go by. But when it comes to more sensitive content and regulated industries, I can predict that the future is really in custom language models. And of course, these custom language models imply an upgrade or an adaptation of the content supply chain. I think there was a very good article some weeks ago about Bloomberg explaining why they were investing in language data, not just because ChatGPT was not something for them, but also because they realized that they had some great content that was untapped, that was never used, like, you know, in customer relationship or even some internal thought leadership. These were just files that were residing somewhere, and now they were extracting from these files that were untapped assets. They were extracting the right content to turn them into language data to indeed, again, train their custom language models. And of course, there is another advantage to that, another value, another type of value, which is that language data are not just used for content creation. It can be used also for customer experience. It can be used for marketing effectiveness, but that's a different topic. So maybe Stefan, you want to go there?
Yeah,
but
I did want to go there, and I was actually waiting for you to say something about it. But I feel I want to, before we do that, can we circle quickly back to Michael, because he raised his hand for like 10 minutes and I let him sit there in the dark.
No, yeah, I don't
I was ready for his question.
Something
He was
happened.
off, and now he's back. So go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, my camera all went dark, so my apologies. Fascinating discussion, and thanks as always, Stefan and Bruno. Great to see you, and look forward to seeing you next week in person as well. So yeah, I mean, I have so many kind of questions, and obviously I feel I'm in a unique position because I'm able to kind of be on the battlefield every single day, so to speak. So with everything that's going on, and I think my kind of, it's a very high level question here, but I'm more asking this question because I really appreciate everybody's amazing experiences through this industry, and Bruno, of course, you're one of those people to follow with things that you post about and talk about and whatnot. But my curiosity from your perspective, Bruno, or anybody else that's out there on this, is that one of the challenges is that there's a lot of folks on the client side that obviously are enamored with this as much as we are, with AI and how it's being used for things like personalization and all these other ways that we can train these LLMs and whatnot. But my question is how do you think you get some of these individuals past the thinking about this being some kind of all-in-one solution for everything right now, and the facts that they don't even want to listen to certain types of other things because everybody's thinking overhead reduction rather than thinking about, you know, actually making something better. And so what do you think is the best kind of way to get them to overcome some of these things, especially when you have executives who don't understand a lot of this stuff in the first place, and then they just were like, oh, well, this is great, this is less hire, and I'm going to look fantastic when the numbers come out.
Yeah, great question, Mike, and I look forward to meeting you next week in San Jose. Well, my experience, and this is really you know, taking now probably 60% of my time, if not more, is to explain, educate people on what AI is and what AI is not. I think it's really important, specifically for decision makers. You mentioned those executives. It's amazing the number of people I've been talking to since, you know, I restarted my consultancy for like 14 months ago now. The number of executives that are indeed either excited or reluctant and skeptical about AI, but it's always for the same reason. There is a lack of understanding, there is a lack of awareness. And I usually, my recommendation would be, if you have to do that, you know, don't take or don't start your effort to educate people by, you know, taking it from an AI perspective. Just go, you know, just go upstream and explain that AI doesn't come out of the blue, that AI is going to be as good, as efficient as people will make it. And that's why I insist so much on language data as much as on AI itself, because when people realize, understand that AI is the most sophisticated form of automation today, and that AI is definitely requiring some changes, and AI is hungry. AI is hungry for data. It's not hungry for files. So if you stick with your files, if you are creating files all over the place, your AI initiative most likely will be very slow or will be dead after a few months. So by explaining first what is happening upstream, what people need to do upfront, which is indeed to invest in language data creation, management, and availability, then it's easier for me to tell those executives, you know what, this is the return on investment of, you know, your data management effort. You need to do that, because if you don't do it, your AI will be either not working or it will be, you know, crap. And that's why people start understanding that indeed, when they use ChatGPT, they were disappointed, because of course they understand that they were just using a large language model that was based on well, more than that now, but initially it was based on 800 billion words. And of course, those words were coming from all over the place without any, you know, real check or real relevance. So they understand that if AI has to create value, because executives, they are looking for value, right? They are looking for, you know, business growth and revenues. So the value that AI is going to produce will not come unless there is, some changes. There are some changes upstream happening in terms of technology, in terms of people, and in terms of workflows. So I take it from the other end, rather than trying to sort of nail down the AI stuff, because most executives will say, oh yeah, I understand AI is doing this. No, they have to understand not just what AI does, but how it does it, why it does it well, or why it doesn't do it well. So that would be my.
No, I love your response, because it's, it's also, it's the fundamental issue is like the application, right? I mean, they don't know exactly how to apply these things, and many people at this juncture don't. And I think others, I put myself in this category. I think it's something that you've just kind of known as coming downstream, upstream, whatever you want to say, that knowing that this was going to happen the way that it was going to happen, for a while. And I think the fact that there's all these tools out there that are amazing, but you bring up all these important points. I mean, do you think that letting them know too that there is more of an upfront lift to doing this is the right approach? Because a lot of them too don't understand. It's like training corpuses back in the day and all this other stuff. They thought, oh, well, I mean, this should be cheaper, not more expensive at first. And it's probably, my guess is a lot of this is going to be at first maybe more costly, but then over time, it then is going to be not only so much better, but also much more cost efficient. And then people will be using their brains for the next advancement of this technology and whatnot.
Can we maybe talk about the practical aspect of this for a second, Bruno? Because I'm thinking about everything that has been said in the last 45 minutes, and I have this pertinent question in my head. If indeed you are looking at private companies that are going to develop their own AI because they are in regulated industries, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What size do companies have to be in order to be able to do this type of initiatives? Because when you look at the main competitors in generative AI right now, they're humongous, the size of Google or Facebook. And then two sub questions come to mind really quickly for me. And specifically, if we're talking about implementing language data, because we touched upon that a couple of times too, that maybe LSPs, the bigger LSPs, would be able to play in this realm and develop their own data for AI usage, so to speak. So practically, who really can develop private AI? And if you can't develop your own private AI, how do you go about being a player nevertheless? Do you rent data? I'm just saying something. Do you buy it somewhere? I thought specifically for LSPs too, that the big advantage was that they have multilingual data, and up until now the development of AI has been mainly in English, so to speak, because that's where the bulk of data exists. Anyway, that's a lot of questions together, but there's a general vein, I think, that is really interesting.
Okay, I'll try to to address all points as much as I can. So first, who is it? Well, what size of company should be doing this internally, or who should be outsourcing that? I would say it's not just a matter of size; it's a matter of budgets, of course, and it's a matter of industry. I can really understand that, a company A that is a scale up, so not a multinational, would go for the approach to work with an external supplier, an LSP, because I think that the creation of custom language models, is a great opportunity for LSPs. So then, because the CEO of the company A would say, this is not our core business. We are not content creators. We're not data managers. So we are going to outsource this work to an LSP or another, supplier or partner. And then you might have company B that is, a multinational. Let's take an example of a multinational. And then in that case, the CEO might have exactly the same reaction and say, why should we do that ourselves? Because it's not our core business. We are, for instance, we are producing medical devices, and that's our job. So when it's about multilingual content and multilingual AI, let's find a business partner. But then probably I would jump in, or somebody would jump in the organization and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe that's not the best approach. Well, the best cost-effective approach, because keep in mind that if you work with an external partner, then that external partner will not be able to use large language models because your business is quite specific, first of all, because your company has a number of content dependencies, which is terminology, which is style, etc. So all that will be a cost anyway. But then, if you keep it internally, then you have to invest as well. But your investment will be, a way to not just feed and train multilingual AI, because you will have to indeed establish some new processes, some new roles for language data management. But at the same time, you will be able to use this language data for more than just multilingual AI, for more than just content generation. So that question is very difficult about when do you do it yourself, or when do you outsource it, or when do you create your own language model, or when do you rely on on large language models. It really depends on, and that's something that I'm doing now with a company, by the way, just to draw the line between what is going to be more time and cost effective and return on investment wise, what is going to be better, and what is definitely not worth keeping internally, to make sure that there is at least a real value created by this new sort of process based on language data. So I hope I covered some of your points.
It's going to be, you covered some, and then there's, I have a bunch of follow-up questions, but I'm going to see you next week in San Jose too. So I'm saving some of my follow-up questions for there as well. Don't want to bore people to go too deep in the technical weeds. One thing that I was thinking of, since quite a few of us here in the room work for LSPs, how do you think we as language service providers can take full advantage of AI while also leveraging our translation memories at the same time? What's the best way of doing that right this very minute?
Well, my immediate recommendation would be jump on the bandwagon that is called language data. And even if you have to keep working with your clients based on the workflows that are file-based, because probably this is going to be a transition. So no company can say tomorrow morning, no more files, all language data. So you can really go to your client and say, hey, you are going to implement AI. So I'm the expert, an LSP, I'm the expert in language services, but I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to do, and that's what some LSPs are doing, by the way, I'm going to extend my offering from language services to content services, data services. And I think that's a logical extension when you think about it, because it's still about language. You just sort of, you move out of the traditional or the historical workflows, or the sort of relationship between a client and an LSP, which is exchanging files and sometimes doing some testing or doing some consulting for content creation. And then your client will appreciate, I'm sure, your proactivity and say, well, okay, this supplier is really willing to become more than just a file transaction or a middleman between translators and myself. This LSP has language expertise, which, as I said in the beginning of the session, that expertise is there, and indeed, expertise of managing expertise with managing translation memories, expertise with managing terminology. All these things are great assets to be able to, really make a difference in language data management. But of course, I realize, and I know it's not easy for a number of LSPs to take that route, because they have to be ready themselves to be able to start, offering some content services like annotation, like curation, like extraction. But I would say if you want to really secure your future, move to content services and include in your offering, include language data services, as part of your content services. And you will see that a number of clients will see a reason for keeping working.
What translators or linguists that are interested in getting involved in annotation and data as you described it, what should they do to get involved? How can they find positions, and how can they learn even how to do that, if that is something that interests them?
Well, I would advise two things to do, really, to, again, jump on the bandwagon. The first one is to, look at what some companies are doing today. Some companies are really explaining what they are doing, and they're explaining how they are, implementing language data management, different tasks, and see how this could fit in their profile. And then if they're interested in moving to these positions, there are companies already in the language industry. I was in Germany 2 weeks ago for a presentation organized by language industry players. Excuse me. There are a number of companies really starting now, including language data services and management in their offering. I'm not going to send some names, but I'm sure you know those names already. These are the major ones, the major LSPs. If you look at the top 10 of NIMSY, most of these LSPs in the top 10 of NIMSY are already, including, language data or content services in their offering. So those linguists may want to look at these companies, there is a third way. Sorry, I said two, but there is a third way, which is to, in their organization, in their company, to start, not themselves, not alone, of course, but to start, creating a group of people and say, hey, we are linguists, or we are freelancers together, and we can offer together new services because we do have the expertise, we do have the language sensitivity that is needed for, curation.
So is it unions? Are we talking, Bruno, unions? Those linguists have unions, right?
We're talking more, Michael, about it's all about the workflow, right? And it's so what Bruno has been saying is kind of like, what I've been saying is we have to change our language, and we have to change the way that we're explaining it to the client. I think 100%. On the linguist and translator side, they can say, hey, I also offer, I could validate your content.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I can feed your LLM.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they can say on the front end. I think on the LSP side, and even on the Bruno side, on the consultancy side, it's the way of saying, I'm going to tell you where in your workflow we need to be. I think it's more of that.
That makes complete sense.
Then it's, I just think we waste so much time on talking about, and instead of, and maybe you look stupid, maybe, let's say, if you say, you go to a client and you say, hey, what size are your files? What kind of files you have? Maybe that language is antiquated, and it's better to say, I love that what Bruno said, because you're saying content, but he's also saying data.
Yeah.
And those are two words people understand. I understand language. I mean, I understand content and data. I don't understand, linguistics and words per minute, whatever, So I think it's more of, I really think, as if you're coming in and saying, this is where we are going to be in your workflow. And then as an LSP, you decide, okay, now that I know what talent I have, I'm going to insert this person into this workflow. This is when I'm going to bring them in to feed the LLM. This is when I'm going to bring someone in to validate the content.
Yeah.
Rather
No, I think it's brilliant, and I think we've talked about this during other local lunches that Stefan's had before too, is just, global content and understanding that and not making it just about, translation, localization, and has always been, to me, the key with these things, especially for folks like us that are talking more high level and not into the weeds every single day. But yeah, no, I love everything that has been said today, so thank you.
Hey,
yeah, and
jump in real quick.
sorry.
I typically run a pretty tight ship, but today I didn't run a tight ship in the beginning at all. We were out of the gate about 10 minutes late because I messed up with the link, and I can't thank everybody.
Yeah, we noticed.
For thank everybody enough for hanging in there with us and showing up nevertheless. Bruno, can you hang 10 more minutes with us and we make it a full hour?
Yeah, 10 more minutes. Yeah, that's no problem.
Right, let's do it.
Yeah, I would just wanted to add something to what Erica said. I agree with I agree on everything that Erica said. I would add one thing, which is very useful to talk about for decision makers, but also for users, for linguists, which is that language data, and I know there are dozens of articles every day on AI powered content, generative AI, etc. All that is very, very interesting, very exciting. But there is another gold mine with language data, which is again already considered in some industries, like the marketing industry, for instance, which is that language data could be, or even should be, used for other purposes than content creation, content generation, which is that you can, maximize, you can increase the value of language data by using that language data for instance, marketing effectiveness, which is customer engagement. To actually say, with language data that is properly customized, that is properly, linguistically correct, of course, you can really use that not just to generate your content all over the place, but also to really start, for instance, building your personas if you have customers that are in some industries. So it can help marketing people. And another example would be that language data can also be used to be more specific or to be more appealing during the customer experience, because of course a customer is buying, but before a customer buys something, a customer is first someone who is looking for information. It is somebody who is asking questions, etc. So you have a number of phases, a number of what is called micro experiences before the purchase experience, where you can use language data to be really more specific, or really to be even more different than your competitor, because you have your own language data that is, of course, as I said, going to be used for or to train language, to train your custom language model. But in addition to that, you can also use your data, your language data, for marketing and customer experience purposes.
And let's not forget marketing efficiency as well, Bruno, right?
Yep.
So maybe we can delve into that, or give us some examples of practical applications that you've seen of UX and marketing efficiency through AI.
Well, actually, the best example I can give for the next 6 minutes is actually UX writing. So in many organizations, you have UX writers, and their job is to create content that is most usable, of course, and that is most actionable, right? That's the focus on these UX writers. And today, what do UX writers use? Most of the time, they use style guides. They use sometimes glossaries, which is, of course, very useful for UX writers. But if a UX writer wants, for instance, to create a campaign that's going to be on the website and that's going to be targeting one segment of the customers, then, of course, he may have access to language data that has been completely curated and customized for that group, because language data has been used for another purpose. And the UX writers then can start using this very valuable language data to do their work, maybe sometimes not better than before, but faster. And that's where AI comes to play to increase productivity, for instance. So I know some UX writers are considering that very seriously, because they realize that that language data can make their job better, which means more creative and faster.
Yeah, in a way I'm sad because I'm working on a presentation for next week, and I tried very hard to get it to get my my video clip ready for today, because I kind of had this feeling that I wanted to share it, and I just didn't get it done by this afternoon. But in a nutshell, it's about how you can do a product campaign essentially in half an hour by using generative AI and Canva. And so I have some amazing footage of that. You can be on the lookout for that maybe next week in our Localization Institute Global Toolbox. I will trot it out, and I think I will be sharing it on LinkedIn later on as well. So unfortunately, I didn't make it. To the meeting here. Bruno, I can't thank you enough for sharing your expertise again with us on my birthday here this afternoon. It was a real present that you gave us, and I can't tell you how thankful I am enough. I'm going to buy you a beer or two next week in San Jose. I've already promised, and I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful weekend. Sorry for the hiccup in the beginning, but I think we got our money's worth double afterwards. This was even more fascinating than the first session, I think, and I really am happy with the way this went down, despite the technical hiccup.
Will there be a third part?
Sorry?
Will there be a continuation?
Me and Bruno will discuss it when we're in San Jose next week, right, Bruno?
Yeah, absolutely. We have tons of topics to discuss, and this is definitely one of them. But of course, beer is most important. So let's go for beer first.
And it's going to be Belgian beer too, I promise you.
Excellent.
All right, good. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And until next time, those of you that are in San Jose, drop me a note and let me know, so I don't miss you. And I know Michael's going to be there, and Bruno's going to be there, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon, if you're not there, in the next LocDiscussion next month. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you,
Happy
Stefan.
birthday.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bruno.
Happy birthday.
Good seeing you guys
Bye
again.
bye.
Good
Thank
seeing
you.
everyone.
Bye.
And happy birthday, Stefan.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care. I'll see you later.
All right, see ya. Bye.